You are now listening to the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast.
Wait, the answer was add 10 gallons?
Add 10 gallons.
My first thought was we got to put Actigel in it.
Yeah, great.
Truck's on the way. On the way.
Yeah, okay. I've got two observations, neither of which are really educated or well thought out. Which are like most of my observations are.
There aren't a lot of problems on a job site that can't be solved with a sack full of biscuits.
Today's episode of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast is brought to you by Actigel 208. Actigel 208 is a high-performance additive for the concrete industry that is greatly beneficial to the producer. It enables them to increase the percentage of manufactured sand by up to 100% and completely replace all the natural sand in the mix. In areas where natural sand is scarce, inconsistent, and expensive, this provides a huge benefit to any ready-mix company out there. Benefits of manufactured sand and concrete include consistent air content, improved compaction, and increased density. Now, in the past, the downside of using manufactured sands was that they were hard to pump, hard to place, and hard to finish. Well, Actigel 208 solves all those issues. By improving suspension, stability, and the quality of the cement paste in the mix, Actigel overcomes the old issues with manufactured sand and leaves them behind. Let Actigel 208 improve the quality of your mix while saving money on every yard you produce. For more information, visit us at actigel.com. That's ACTI-GEL.com.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. We appreciate you being with us. I'm joined by the boys, as always, Paul and Joey. Paul, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks.
Good. Joey, what's up?
I'm good, brother.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. It's college football season. We're going to get to that first and foremost because we know what's important. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. Tennessee feels great about beating a subpar opponent. Arkansas plays down to their competition and barely beats somebody they should have blown out. And Alabama's mad because they let the opponent score. It's like there was no off season. We're right back to last year.
That was the best synopsis of the weekend I've heard from anybody. That was perfect. Well done.
Yeah.
We'll see if anything changes throughout the season. It'll probably just stay the same throughout the season, too.
Very likely. I'm just hoping for 5 or 6 wins. Maybe we get to a bowl game because we have a tough schedule.
Arkansas's next game is Texas. Did you see the line?
Ooh, I'm curious.
What do you think it is?
Texas by 6.
6.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm surprised it's close.
I think Arkansas will beat them.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay.
Early
break it
in
down.
the year, Texas is always good for a letdown.
No. They're back. I heard from reliable.
Something about them orange and white teams. They back every year.
Well played. Yeah, I know they're back, but they're only back after they drop a loss early in the year to a team they should have blown out. It used to be Maryland for the last couple of years, and now it's going to be Arkansas.
Oh, speaking of Maryland, God.
They're going to be fun to watch.
They looked good.
Yep.
That offense, anyway.
Yeah. They're going to have to score 40-some points, I think. But
that was the only bet I got right this weekend.
I know. Yeah, you whiffed on LSU.
Yeah, who saw that coming?
I didn't. Coach O, I don't know. He's not really playing with his recruits yet.
Oh, BS. Listen.
Okay.
I saw the best comparison for Coach O. Unbelievable. Listen to this. He's Gene Chizik.
And I saw it too.
In a purple shirt.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Rides a Heisman-winning superstar quarterback with a couple good skill players to a national title and then falls off a cliff.
Yeah. I saw that too. Who put that out?
Clay Travis, I know, said it.
It was Clay
That's
Travis.
where I heard
an
it
Outkick
anyway.
post.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, it almost seemed too smart for Clay.
Coming in with the hot takes.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. I knew it wasn't my idea, but it was brilliant.
He was in Knoxville on Thursday, and then he was at the where Georgia and Clemson play. Was that Charlotte?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Did they play in Charlotte? And then he's going to be at the Texas-Arkansas game this weekend. So
I didn't know that. That's pretty rad. Is Texas Arkansas going to be at Dallas Stadium?
I believe so.
Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, it usually is, isn't it?
Well, they usually play A&M there.
Oh. I'll have to go back and look. I don't know. I just couldn't believe the line was 6.5. I thought Texas would run away on you guys. But you think Arkansas is going to win. Yeah, I mean, break it down. You were starting to break it down earlier.
Nah, I mean, it's a gut feeling. I don't have any in-depth analysis for you, and it's probably a homer bet. It'd be interesting to see which way the line moves.
So you're saying, don't put my mortgage.
I'm not going to bet on it.
I watched about 5 minutes of football on the plane ride from Maine Sunday. That was the Notre Dame FSU. Turned out to be a good game.
Yeah, I lost money on that one too.
Took ND?
Yeah, took Notre Dame. Yeah, I didn't think FSU's quarterback was actually going to be that good. There's a kid from UCF. Turns out he's freaking awesome.
Notre Dame has taken my money so many times. I don't bet on them either anymore.
Yeah, unbelievable. Hey, Joey, you were flying back from Maine. Tell the people where you were.
Yeah, went up to the Canadian border in Maine. Went bear hunting for a week. Did not kill a bear. Had a bear about 20 feet behind me when I was up in a tree. Couldn't turn around and get a shot at him. But 2 guys in camp got bear. Another guy shot at one, and another guy was real picky. He was looking for a great big one. So he saw a bunch of bear, didn't shoot any. And I heard a few more bears, and then that one was behind me. But I heard bears because if anybody that's ever been bear hunting, I don't know how many of our listeners have been bear hunting, but they sound like somebody tiptoeing through the woods in their socks. I mean, it's eerie because, they don't sound like a deer that's prancing through the woods. They don't sound like a squirrel rummaging around like they're sneaky. So it was pretty cool to just hear them walking around in the woods. But come home empty-handed. Not totally empty-handed. My buddy that flew with me, he let me have some bear meat, and I got some moose meat from the guy that took us up there. And I got some fresh salmon. So came back with full coolers.
It's worth it for the salmon for me.
Yeah, we checked 2 coolers. One cooler weighed 70-something pounds. The other one weighed 98. So we had full coolers.
Hopefully you're flying Southwest, so it's free.
Well, it's free up to 50 pounds. So between 51 and 100 pounds, it's $75 a piece. But that's if you're, your 4 bags, between the 2 of us, 4 bags flew for free, and we just had to pay the overweight charge.
Now, I remember back in my day, the overweight fee was $35.
It's still cheaper than shipping that mess.
Certainly. In the meantime, you're just sitting up there, watching grass grow.
Yep, that's hunting for you. The weather was good though, man. It was in the mid 60s up there for the high. So
there you go.
I was loving that.
All right. Well, it seems we all had pretty decent weekends, or our Labor Day weekend. But what's going on in the concrete world? What are you guys saying?
Well, I found a pretty interesting article that came out in the website forconstructionpros.com. They were talking about like a reality show about concrete. So it was kind of in the vein of like Forged with Fire from the History Channel or one of these type of. It actually kind of was like almost like a cooking show, but it was project based, and so you had teams of 2 people against another team of 2 people, and they'd had to compete in a series of events, and the winner stays and loser goes home. Try to advance to the last episode of the show. So there's several teams competing over all these episodes, and just different skills challenges. So building retaining walls with a 72-hour cure, and then dude takes a sledgehammer to it to see if your retaining wall was worth the dang. But anyway, it's called Concrete Combat.
I mean, I'd watch it. But my opinion's pretty biased at this point.
Yeah. Put on by Sackcrete, of all people.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually went in with like legit cameras, legit made a reality game show essentially out of pouring concrete.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, they took the same approach as we did with this podcast. They're like, how do we increase brand awareness and overall popularity? How do we get in front of people without your typical ad?
Yeah, exactly. So they threw up a TV show on YouTube essentially. It's still going. So they're releasing like a new episode every week.
Okay.
So you go to Sackcrete's YouTube channel to watch the episodes, and the grand finale is scheduled to be filmed live, World of Concrete 2022 in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Heck yeah.
Might have to check that out.
That's pretty cool. I like it. I love the idea. I love the innovation. I like doing stuff different because people don't look at print ads anymore. People scroll right past ads on social media because you can see them coming from a mile away now. So yeah, you got to do something different to get your name out there and to drive clicks, to drive page views, whether it be YouTube or your actual website. You got to do something different. That's awesome. I love it. Why didn't I think of that? Right?
I don't know. Like, one of the challenges was to resurface and repair 1 square of a damaged concrete sidewalk. And so you had to fix all the cosmetic defects and everything. And, you know, judges went in, marked up the concrete to be as realistic as possible. And when they did it, like, they got criticized. Like, the judges were over there on the side being like, that is not how you fix a sidewalk.
Really?
Talking smack. Just like one of these cooking shows or something where they're like, oh, I don't know what he's doing over there. But
yeah, you gotta interject some kind of drama in there, it seems like.
Yeah.
People like it. That's really cool.
Yeah. The article has a pretty funny quote where the guy says, the judge walked up and he was like, now you know that ain't right. And he goes, what's that? He goes, everything. So anyway, new episodes out every month for that. So you see that on Sackcrete's YouTube channel.
Very cool. Sackcrete coming in with the production value. Now, I'll say this about production value and people being paid actors when they probably shouldn't be. Everyone listening here needs to go to the Add 10 Gallons YouTube page to see the recent marvel of cinematic excellence that your 3 boys put together.
Yes, sir.
Paul, Joey, and myself, we put together a little short, what was it, 3.5 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, a little short video clip telling all you people how Actigel 208 can help increase the percentage of manufactured sand that you use in your ready-mix concrete in order to save you money on every yard produced. And we came in with some prime comedic value there.
On brand.
It's very on. Yeah. You won't get bored.
It's the beginning of the Add 10 cinematic universe.
Yeah, we're building an empire over here.
Our CEO saw the video, and his only comment was about Joey's character.
Really?
Can we say what that comment was on air?
Yeah. He said, put your hard hat on the right way.
I could appreciate that.
Very corporate response.
Yeah. Well, that's good. As long as they said we could post it, we didn't waste a whole day.
Literally a whole day.
I'm fine. But I'm happy with it, and you guys should go check it out on our YouTube channel. Search Add 10 Gallons Podcast, and you'll find it.
All right, Josh, what'd you bring to the table to talk about?
Something not near as interesting, or entertaining, I should say, as a TV episode about concrete. But if you're into boring stuff like watching grass grow, now instead you can watch concrete grow. Because some guys at the MIT Concrete Sustainability Hub found a way to use Raman, R-A-M-A-N, Raman microspectroscopy.
You want to try that one more time?
Yeah. Found a way to use Raman, R-A-M-A-N, microspectroscopy. Son of a...
Today, Junior?
Could not do live TV. Couldn't do it. Can't do it, won't do it.
Owl now, brown cow.
Microspectroscopy. Spectroscopy.
Oh yeah, what did that do?
I'll get one here. Thank God I'm good at editing these things.
I hope you leave the whole thing in. This is primo content.
Well, thanks to my potty mouth, I can't. You guys can bleep it out if you want an Instagram blooper reel. Microspectroscopy. To get a closer look at the specific dynamic chemical reactions that take place when water hits cement. What it does is it creates an image by shining a high-intensity laser light on material and measuring the intensities and wavelengths of the light as it's scattered by the molecules themselves, and kind of creates a three-dimensional image from that. So this kind of imaging is often used to characterize biological and archaeological materials. So it's already used in some elements of science, but now they can use this to observe and sample the way ordinary Portland cement reacts when it's placed in water.
So are these samples being examined like as the crystals are growing, not just after they've already grown?
Correct. Yeah, up until now, you could observe these crystals after they're grown or while they're grown, but just as a snapshot. And now with this imaging technology, you can see the process real time as a movie instead of a picture.
That's cool.
Yep. Yep. So they're going to look at using this technology to kind of observe the way cement hydrates with certain additives and how it gives off carbon emissions, of course, because they tied this into a green study so they could get funding, likely. But then, they're also going to be able to look at how it reacts with other additives and things like that and kind of get a sense of how a mix will hydrate and gain strength before it actually goes out into the field or even gets to lab testing. So it's a more expensive way to be efficient, so we'll see if it actually makes a difference long term. But being from MIT and being that they said, hey, we can cut down carbon emissions with this, they got funding to do so. So we'll see what comes out of it. If nothing else, some really cool pictures will come out. All right, well, without further ado, let's get into our guest here. We have Lee Thrasher from Command Alkon. Lee is a CIM grad. He's an OG, actually. He was part of the very first CIM class there at Middle Tennessee State University that also houses the program that Paul and Joey went to. So, yet again, here I am, the black sheep, interviewing somebody that went to a program I didn't. But, still cool, as long as y'all still like me.
For sure. Yeah, and Lee gives us an accurate history of the beginning of the program. He reached out to us and said, hey, I love what you do to talk about the program, but there's a beginning to it that you guys haven't discussed. And he came on and enlightened us about what that really looked like, what it was about, and we'll have some more to share later about some photographs he sent us and other stuff.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, really, he's got a class photo of the original members there that we'll put up on our Instagram and Facebook pages, which is, nostalgia is always cool. And he also gives one of the best, maybe in the running for the best, craziest thing you've ever seen on a job site story. That's at the end. So stick with us till the end of the interview here with Lee Thrasher, and without further ado, we'll get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so for this episode of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast, we bring Lee Thrasher in here from Command Alkon. Lee, how's it going, man?
It's going great, guys. Good to be chatting with you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being on here. I'm also joined by Paul Finley, of course, and we're going to talk with you about a little bit of everything. You've been in the industry for a little bit of time now. You've had a couple different jobs that actually vary quite a bit as far as your roles and responsibilities. And we're going to talk about how you got there. But first, let's talk about how you start, because obviously you're a CIM grad. It's everybody but me on this podcast is a CIM grad. So what were your years that you spent in that program?
So the program officially kicked off in 1996 with Chris and Alan as the first two students that signed up. The first actual class was the fall of 97. And I signed up that summer in July. The guy that I was working with, a good friend of the family, was running a concrete construction company. And through a wild series of events in my distinguished career at MTSU, to that point, I was sitting out a semester trying to save money to go back. And he said, hey, have you heard about this concrete program? And I said, well, yeah, a little bit, because I had a construction management class the fall of 96. Bob Elliott came in and talked to us and told us about it. So I was aware that they were going to get something new started. And my mentor, Bob Newton, told me that, it's going to be great. The industry's really supporting it. It's a fantastic industry, and you got a knack for this stuff. I think you'd do real good at it. And that's when I was doing the heavy highway paving. I was going to pick on Joey a little bit about that, running string lines. But I went back to MTSU and did a quick interview and talked to Dr. Keese and Ginger Corley, who was the program administrator at the time, because there was no faculty, there was no staff. It was just a program on paper pretty much. So I started there fall of 97. There were 7 of us in that first class. The Dean of College of Basic and Applied Sciences, Dr. Keese, was actually our first instructor and officially on paper. And he didn't know anything much. He was not a concrete guy. He's the dean of the college. So he was bringing in the original patrons group. The 4 guys, the Bob Elliott, Jim Speakman, Ward Poston, and Denny Lynn. So those guys were our instructors. And it was awesome. It was cool. It was kind of like we got ready the PCA Design and Control book was our first textbook, like the first year and a half, really the whole time, but definitely that first year and a half. So Dr. Keese just started going through the book. We get to the chapter on aggregates. He says, well, let's just go to a rock quarry. So he'd get with the patrons guys and they'd go send us out to the rock quarry, and we go hang out with those guys for a couple of class periods and learn about, making little rocks out of big ones, and then got ready to talk about cement. Let's go to a cement mill. So take a field trip. It was just like we were hardly ever in the classroom. We were always out doing something, going to a concrete plant, going to a quarry, going to a job site. It was amazing. So that was in fall of 97. And Brent and I went to Denmark on an internship the summer and fall of 98. So a few more students had signed on that spring of 98, started putting a class together, and then we took off and come back. And Austin Cheney had been hired. A couple of dozen more students had signed up. It was like a whole different world for us at that point. But those last 2 years were pretty impressive and pretty impactful, going to a lot of industry events and stuff. And then I graduated in May of 2000 with that first class. There was 10 of us that graduated in 2000, 7 or 8 of us in May, and then 3 or 4 in December.
Okay. So from your humble beginnings, did you have a lab to work out of at that time, or was that built as you were there or after you left?
No, yeah, after I left. Yeah, they remodeled the building a couple of years after I left. So our lab, we would actually go to a concrete plant lab. We would actually go to a testing lab. We did some work, some of the local labs there, or would go to the lab at the rock quarry, and do some stuff there. And then I was fortunate enough, the construction company I was working for was owned by Harper Industries, which owned Metro Ready Mix at the time. So I come off the paving crew, and Bob sets me up to go in and talk to the guys at Metro Ready Mix. And they have now Smyrna Ready Mix, but ever since day one, they've had a great history of hiring students and giving them a platform to get real world as well as school. So I was the first student that they hired affiliated with the program, and they put me as running or working next to the plant manager in the Murfreesboro plant there in the Hoover Rock Quarry. So I'd get out of class and I'd go to the plant and talk to the plant manager, Rick Moat, who at the time was there as a stepping stone to go on to being QC manager. And I moved with him into QC. But it was great because I could go to the plant and say, all right, Rick, here's what the book says. Here's what we studied in class. Why don't we do that? And he said, well, that'd be great, but we, this X, Y, or Z, So I was able to get real world and book and, what it could be all in one cycle of a year or two there is pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, that works out good because you hear a lot of people that go through the program now, and because of all of the resources, they actually might have less job site experience. Not that they don't have any, and there's certainly internships, but it always seems like there's some sort of a learning curve with everybody when they realize that not everything on paper performs like it should. And most of the time it doesn't, rather. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. But there's always that immediate experience where it hits you in the face all at once. You're like, oh, man, I better learn how to fix this stuff on the fly.
Yeah, and it was really cool that the Metro Ready Mix plant at the time at the Hoover Quarry was a newer plant, had a brand new Eagle batch system, state of the art. It was like the latest and greatest, but it was on the same property as the old plant that had been there since probably late 50s, early 60s. So if something happened and the new plant went down, we'd have to run down to the old plant and batch. And that was one that had the big, massive dial scales, the big hand levers, and punch cards. And I was like, they don't teach this in school, man. What is this? This is crazy. You mean people still do this? And Rick's like, yeah, man, there's a lot of plants still run like this. And then when I got out and got down into, South Georgia, some of those plants were triple beam decumulation scale type plants, and the dispatcher, The visual doesn't work on a podcast, but I mean, he's got the phone jacked up to his ear on his shoulder, squeezed in there, and he's working the levers and doing the admix thing and taking an order, and writing it in chalk on the load beam of the plant right there, and the truck's, wound up to charging speed 15 feet from him at most, and I couldn't even hear myself think standing there, much less take an order. Those were some amazing dudes back then.
Yeah, it hits you when you first see a lever plant. Because, hold on a second. How much sand did you add there? It was a 3 count.
Yeah. It's amazing how, when you get down to it, the 3-2-1 rule still kind of works in a way. Yeah. But yeah, that was the early start, getting in with the transition kind of between one of the phases of the industry, kind of between old school and new school. The industry was making a really, really big push at the time to get more broad-based experienced people in the business, and that's kind of how the whole program got going with the RMC 2000 initiative. A lot of, the industry got together and created this degree. So they were the driving force the first several years for sure. It took a long time in maybe not in university government administration world, time scale's different. But in the real world, it took a while to get, what are our textbooks going to be? What's the syllabus? What's the actual curriculum outline, and getting the curriculum approved. And so, Austin Chaney had several years there where he was sort of trying to wrangle all that and work with Dr. Keith's administration and put the bones of a framework behind, what this needed to be with the industry, and the industry input constant, with patrons and meetings and everything else was just amazing. And he kind of built that backbone framework that Heather was able to come in. It's kind of like Austin poured the foundation and Heather built this amazing palace. It was pretty cool. But that being involved in that foundation front, we probably dug it out and repoured it about 3 or 4 times.
Right. Well, since you left or after you left the program, you get your first job in a ready mix plant, is what I understand. And where do you go from there? How long were you there at your first job out of school, and then where'd you transition after that?
Yeah, I went over to the Carolinas briefly and worked for Unicon Concrete. That was the company that had given Brent and I the internship overseas. And they convinced me to come over there, and I was working with them as a plant manager, kind of a area manager in Mooresville, North Carolina, then transitioned to kind of help get a new plant built in Charlotte market. Wasn't there very long, probably about a year, as happens from time to time. It just wasn't the right move, wasn't the right timing. So went down to South Georgia with Master Builders and loved it. Really enjoyed getting that training and that Master Builder swag going, Back then, there were a lot of my mentors, a lot of guys that were around the program, certainly supported by all the admix companies, but several of us went to Master Builders early on. That was one of the first steps in the career. So we would go to the training, and there'd be another CIM guy there. It's pretty neat. Spent 4 years there, just short of that, and then went to work for one of my customers, which was Ready Mix USA, and stayed with them for almost 13 years through all the different transitions of growth and acquisitions and things, and then made it through the Cemex merger. So I stayed with Cemex in Atlanta, running tech services there, doing master data and some other things, and then went to Spraylock for last couple of years before joining Command Alkon. Got into a little bit of nanotechnology there with Spraylock and colloidal silica. Had a lot of fun. Great people there. Got to work with Brent again, which is interesting. Since school and our internship, we, diverged. Came back working for the same company in Ready Mix USA. Diverged. Came back working for the same company in Spraylock, and now we kind of diverged a little bit. But some of those, you'll find your career interweaving with those folks you went to school with. Here it is. 2 decades later, almost 3 from the time we started, 15, and it's pretty cool. So
that is neat. So for Master Builders and Spraylock, were you in sales or were you in?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've done a little mix of managing plants and building new plants, and selling materials, and you did some QC work as well. What do you prefer?
I like being on the innovation side. That's really what led me to Command Alkon. I like being I suppose I gravitated towards tech services more because although you had the complaints and the customer service you've got to deal with if you're in sales or operations or management or whatever, at least on the technical side, occasionally you got a little relapse to go play around and have some fun in the lab. At least to me, it was a lot of fun, going in and seeing what you could do with concrete and what's the next best thing coming. What's going to be the thing about concrete that really changes. Because like we were talking earlier, the 3-2-1 rule still applies to people. So how are you going to innovate? And it's when you look at it as the second most widely used resource on Earth and the number one building material ever, there's still a lot of things that are never going to change about it, and yet everything can change. So if you play around with it enough, so that's been the one I've gravitated toward the most. What's the innovation in the industry? And what can you do with concrete as a building material that's going to be impactful for a long time, Some of the oldest structures in the world are based on cementitious properties, It's some of this stuff we've built. If we could ever get away from engineered obsolescence, it may be stuff that 4 or 5 generations down the line can enjoy, which would be great.
Don't get me started on planned obsolescence. I'll go on a tangent. This will be a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. Yeah.
What do you got, Paul?
Well, no, now I want to hear what you have to say about engineered obsolescence.
There's conspiracies everywhere.
Conspiracies everywhere. It's interesting. We ask that question sometimes, people's career arcs. What did they like the most? Nobody ever says QC. I wonder why that is.
Well, that's why I use the term technical services because, when you're just doing QC, you're a fireman, man. You're a first responder when, blank gets hot. You're putting out the fire. So if you can ever handle that job and have the support of the upper management and the resources put together to turn it into technical services where QC is a part of that, but also start being proactive like a fire marshal, and then truly bring value to the business and find those innovations and find those things that, your competition doesn't have and can bring more value to the bottom line and, getting into your P&Ls and profit margins and all that. They're real headaches other than just putting out fires. So, yeah, I enjoyed that side of it for sure.
We've said on here a bunch of times that we love QC guys, and if we could build leadership teams, they would all be QC managers. If I could, they would have come from being QC managers and be leaders in different departments. And the reason for that is because they're always putting out fires, and so they don't have this knee-jerk reaction every time something goes wrong to just scream the sky is falling. They're actually the other side of that. We're like, hold on, well, the sky may be falling, but there may be a way to prop it up. Let's go prop it up. And those are the kind of people I like being with.
Yeah, you got to be a special person to be in that business for sure. For sure. Or maybe you just learn how to be. Because if you're a QC manager for longer than a week, you realize that, every problem's solvable.
Just about, I don't know if we solve them all because that's the cool thing about the concrete business. It's never the same thing. It is changing constantly. And just making it through a year of somewhere if you've got 4 seasons, you're going to get into the environmental conditions and how they affect concrete placement and concrete finishing. A lot of guys spend their whole career and don't ever have that switch flick in their head. Same guy complains about accelerator not working 17 years in a row. Maybe it's you, dude. It's hard to fight chemistry, man. Come on. It's all
Mr.
perception.
Folks at CIM, Mr. Folks actually had a good way of putting it. He was like, you're always going to have problems because you're dealing with natural elements and natural materials. He's like, so the rock is going to change on you. The sand's going to change on you. The cement is a natural material. It's going to have natural fluctuations no matter how much we try to control for it. And then you got nature. So the wind's going to be different, temperatures, humidity, everything's going to be different, and you got to be prepared to deal with that and adjust with that. And I always thought that was a good way to approach it on the quality control side and the quality assurance side as well. It's that if your plan is robust enough and your training is good enough, then you can make those adjustments on the fly and still have quality product.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Joe Fulks. He was running Metro Ready Mix when I started working there. And so then a couple of years later, when he comes in to teach, that was one of my final semesters. So we were in the first class that he got to teach. And he got 2 lessons that hit with me. One was, and I don't know if it's a true story or not, but I've retold it dozens of times as if it were. But he said there was a guy interviewing Albert Einstein one time, and at the end of the interview, he asked if he could get his phone number to call him, in case he had a question. And Albert said, I don't know what my phone number is. And the guy freaked out, Well, the smartest guy in the world doesn't know his phone number. Well, he reached down and picked up the phone book and looked up his name and read off his number. He said, it's not important that I know. What's important is I know how to find it. And that was, if you had Joe Fulks for a class or any other teacher like that, that kind of resonated. So I thought, well, that's pretty intuitive. And then a few class periods later, we were doing mass concrete, talking about it. And I asked the question, could you, effectively change your heating or cooling rate by changing your aggregates? Because does the specific heat change? We were doing the handwritten formula, And he said, I don't know. Why don't you go find that out, Albert Einstein? And I thought, oh, great, man. I spent like 7 weeks trying to figure out who in the world had ever researched specific heat of materials. So one day I kind of dragged into the office at Metro Ready Mix and said, look, man, I can't find anything. He went to a bookshelf and pulled out a 1929 guide to aggregates from the Army Corps of Engineers. And buried in that book was a study of like 170 different aggregates from across the country, lightweight, heavyweight, limestone, shales, granite, didn't matter. They were in there, and they had a column where they checked the specific heat of every one of them. And they changed so little, he made me do the formula like 16 times with different aggregates selected at random. And it made no change in the concrete temperature. So to this day, I can do all the mass concrete jobs and things we've done, People ask about, well, what if you use lightweight? Well, what if you use heavyweight? Nope. I may be the one guy I know from a tech services standpoint who actually knows that answer, thanks to Joe Fulks. Thank you very much. Rest in peace there, Mr. Fulks. I still use what I learned that day for 20-some years later.
Yeah, our favorite story is when he sat up on that stool in the front of the class. He says, all right, you're having cash flow problems. What do you do? Everybody, because we're all 20-year-olds, we don't know anything, raising our hands. Charge more money. He goes, now you done lost all your business. Wrong. Somebody else says, well, sell more product. Well, if you could do that, you'd be doing it. Next answer. Collect from your customers. Maybe they owe you money. He goes, yeah, you think we ain't already tried that? No. What's the answer? And he sat up there with that grin that he got, and he say, don't pay your bills. Like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a good lesson in life. If you're that cash strapped, he's like, don't pay your bills. He goes, they're not going to shut the power off tomorrow. He was like, collect on your customers, review your business model. There's a lot of things you can do, but in the short term, just the power company will be all right.
Yeah.
What about that?
Oh man, well that brings us up to current time and what you're doing with Command Alkon, a big company that's pretty nuanced. So what is your actual role there?
Yeah, so I joined them just a few months back to be part of the Command Assurance sales team. So the Command Assurance product is just one of the many suites that we have, but it's the product that is the actual in-transit load monitoring. It's the probe that goes in the hatch of the drum and takes readings on that fresh concrete as the truck is in transit. And it's linked into the Track It system, which is the GPS functionality. So you get a lot of other telemetrics and data from the load. So you can check properties like temperature, slump, and soon-to-be air, volume of the load. But you're getting the revolutions, you're getting water added, you're getting a lot of things that happen on that job site to give you a full picture window that just is a better way of tagging on to the established GPS technology that's out there. You take the new technology that can couple fresh load monitoring along with that GPS data, and now you have a real better understanding and record of what happened in transit, because that's always been the mystery, right? To tag into nothing can be solved, without there's not a job site problem that can be solved with a sack full of biscuits. Well, you always wonder if that driver's going to stop and get a sack full of biscuits back in the day. So it kind of takes those questions out of it, Of course, as a QC manager, you don't want to, it kind of takes away the ability to do a few things here and there. But for the most part, it's great to see that recordation of the load over and over and over again. And especially in today's world when it is so incredibly difficult to find, hire, and maintain drivers, that having something like this on the truck takes a lot of that pressure and a lot of that learning that CDL guy now has to do to understand concrete. Because it's not like hauling anything else in the world. There's no other delivered product that changes in transit, unless you're hauling ice cream and a reefer goes out. Well, it's pretty simple. You just refreeze it. You can't do that with concrete. It goes bad, it's bad. So a lot of the new guys coming in, and I remember when I was, training on a mixer as well, the driving part's just the one piece. And now with all the, great safety programs and things like that are out there, the advancement in the technology of the trucks, automatic transmissions, things like that, it's, you can have a CDL from other things, short haul, long haul, other materials, and come in and fit right in and be a great driver for a ready mix truck, as long as you understand that load's going to change and shift. And that's what intimidates a lot of guys. So if you can get that piece in a way they can understand, they can see, you got the display screen on the back of the truck right there, so they know what's happening with their load. It's a great advancement in the industry, and there's still a lot of hatches out there without a probe in it. So I'm excited to be getting into that part of the business at this stage, because I think it does kind of pull together all those different aspects of what I've done to this point. I've got the operational management. I've drove a mixer a little bit, not much, but some. But been around those guys, certainly been on the slump rack more times than I can count, certainly trying to monitor and figure out, go back, put the pieces of the puzzle together. Well, what happened on this job? Why did load set up too fast? Why did flash set on them? Or why did it sit there forever? And now you've got a capability to get those records in place, so you're not saying why and just, wetting a finger and sticking it in the wind to try to gauge a guess. You actually have hard data you can look at and say, okay, well, this is painting a picture here that we can understand. It's pretty cool.
So I talked to someone in the ready mix business, director of quality control for a pretty big size company, and they're using one of these hatch technologies. I don't believe they have yours. I think they have your competitor. But his reasoning for why he adopted it was very interesting to me. He said that they have satellite plants that are very difficult to get their limited QC staff out to those plants to constantly be slumping or checking air on these trucks. And since they don't have anybody out in these plants all the time to be running that QC job, they have the hatches on those the trucks that are at those satellite plants, because now he can sit in his command center at the headquarters and he can see what's happening with those trucks, and he knows that if they make the proper adjustments, and he knows this not because he's all-knowing, but because they ran the test. They saw, hey, the truck was in transit for 45 minutes. It lost this amount of slump. So the next truck, they add a little extra high range or water or whatever they add. And he says, oh, okay, well, this change happened. But then there's more things to correct, like drum rotational speed. Maybe they were spinning a little too fast or not spinning it at all as they were driving down the road. And so there are these changes they can make, but they're making them because they can monitor the trucks as they're moving. Right. And being able to monitor that keeps their QC staff on the bigger jobs centralized where they need to be. And for him to allocate his resources at his company that efficiently was a huge win for him. Have you seen something similar going on with the Command Assurance product? Is that something you've seen your customers benefiting from?
Oh yeah, most definitely, and that's one of the things that got my attention, because I had 8 or 9 technicians working for me in Atlanta, and if somebody complained about a load being too wet, slump too high, if it was a high demand customer, I have to divert a technician from the job he's already on to run over there and check it out, and see what happened. And you never want to put your driver in that situation of arguing. You want to kind of put a third party on it. So running those guys around like that was just crazy, eating up time. And we definitely see that with our customers of having, it's almost like having someone to check, slump air temperature on every single load all the time. A lot of the customer testimonials on our website for our our users talk about that, how they can sit in the office or at their house in the middle of the night and monitor 2 or 3 pours at a time instead of having guys, running around or just standing on a job site. If everything's going smooth, think about the wasted energy if everything's going right. Then that QC guy's got limited value being out there if it's just a standard mix with standard kind of needs. So definitely a benefit. One of the things that caught me in one of our first customer tours was in July they're running ice, and they can actually monitor that slump loss and temperature gain from the plant to the job in real time. So they're able to actually adjust the ice load and what their cost is there by just being able to see that data in real time. So they're able to make adjustments just having the system monitor on there and not having somebody, at the plant, slowing down the truck, taking a sample, checking the temperature, going to the job, somebody at the job, slowing down the truck, taking a sample, getting the temperature, comparing notes, guessing what happened in between, and making things on the fly. You can see it in real time. So whereas a lot of times you just get a adjustment or a trim water setting and you just set it because you've got nobody out there and just kind of hope and cross your fingers that it holds up throughout the day with weather changes and everything else. Now you can do it off real data. It's pretty cool that way. It does take the place of a lot of having to have QC staff on every truck.
Very cool. Well, we love talking about technology and new technology within the industry here on this show. We do it every episode if we can, and most of the time it's easy to do so. And it seems like right now you're riding that wave at Command, where there's multiple different companies out there, and there's a lot of ready mix companies that are interested in adopting this kind of technology for the aforementioned benefits. And obviously Command Alkon isn't the only one out there with this kind of technology. There's a lot of companies trying to adapt and take advantage of this wave of technology. But from your perspective, for someone who's been in sales, what's the adoption rate like? How hard is it to talk somebody into investing in this type of technology?
Well, it's definitely a big ask, because anytime you do anything that touches your fleet, you're not talking about just doing it 2 or 3 times like you might have planned, or 10 or 12. I mean, you're talking dozens or hundreds of mixers out there. So it's a big ask, and you really got to look at the ROI on this thing and see, does it fit your business model and what you're trying to achieve? Is it a great piggyback for other technology you've already adopted? If you just look at technology as a whole, there's a lot of things out there. So this may be just one piece of technology somebody's ready for, while another ready-mix operation is just now really getting good at GPS, or they're just really getting good at other truck systems or back office systems. So there's a lot of platforms out there that affect, I think, that the answer to that question, because there's a lot of, the technology adoption curve is very high. This particular technology, there's 3 major players in the U.S. for in transit technologies right now, and I think they're all on a pretty good growth curve. I think I've been very impressed in my limited time with Command so far, the number of deals I've seen close relative to what was in the fire. I don't know that I could put a percentage rate on it, but it's been impressive. It's been impressive to see after a couple of conversations that switch go off and guys can realize, okay, if they have A, B, and C, this is just the natural progression for them. This is D, and they want to get it. They want to be the first in their market to have it. It doesn't take long at all to start seeing your ROI. Some of the graphs and reportings and things that we have that you can go back and look show guys after 2 or 3 months, they're starting to batch more effectively, utilize trucks better on the efficiency side, a lot less lost loads, conflicts that arose because of water ad or something like that, holding trucks on a job where they might have had a claim to pay out or goodwill to pay out, is not having to happen. So there's that money's not being spent. So it's pretty neat. I feel like it is a wave. I feel like it's just kind of getting started. There's been some early adopters out there, but now I think the technology is certainly stable and predictable enough to be able to have a much wider adoption, and I think that's going to happen in the next several years, because whether you're in a high demand commercial market, downtown Atlanta, something like that, it makes a lot of sense. And if you've got a lot of those satellite plants and you've got a wide geographical area, it definitely makes sense, to be able to see what's happening. So it's a fit for just about any size company.
Yeah, so I really don't love talking about litigation in the industry, but
Yeah.
but you brought up something interesting that I hadn't thought about, being able to go back to the records and say, no, actually we didn't add a bunch of water to this, or whatever the target may be that someone's challenging on why a load failed. Are these records stored in the cloud and forever, so that anytime a job goes bad, the producer can go back and say, no, here's the exact data on this load from the time it was batched to the time it emptied out?
Our system, anyway, definitely operates off the cloud platform. So it's in there in the Connects platform, and you get that data through Insights. As far as how long that data is stored is kind of customer and situation specific. Forever's a long time. It's, but the information is definitely there, and they can store it and they can have it. One of the other cool stories I saw when I first got going was looking at our existing customers. There's one right here in Georgia, Wayne Davis, and in the first week of having probes on the job, they got a complaint from a pump company that said, hey, the load showed up wet. Austin was able to just pull it up right there real quick while he's on the phone with the customer on his phone or his tablet and see that they added 70 gallons of water. And he said, yeah, of course it's wet. You added 70 gallons of water to that load. That's why it's clogging the pump. Click, phone hung up, and not another word about it. And those loads were paid for. So in a situation where in the past it would have been having to either run somebody out to that job to check on it, get into an argument over the telephone with nobody having real information, or just biting the bullet and saying, okay, send it back, and get the story from the driver when he gets back. Now he could look it up right there in real time and say, well, yeah, that's what happens when you add 70 gallons of water to a load. So those type of situations, happen, gosh, every day, everywhere, And now he's one of the ones that actually has real real solid information to say, nope, it didn't happen. And, it's good for definitely months on end, so that, you get a complaint on low brakes or something like that. 30 days, 60 days later, you can go back and say, okay, well, here's the history of what happened. You're not just trying to scrounge through tickets and hoping a prayer that somebody, scribbled some ink on a delivery ticket that's wadded up and got coffee spilled all over it and in the bottom of a file drawer somewhere. Now you've actually got it in a way that's captured and a lot more accessible for sure.
Definitely. Well, we talked about the wave of technology here and how it's so beneficial to so many parties throughout the entire job site. But if you can, what do you see that's coming next? Because as we've seen in technology and so many other industries, once you get that snowball rolling, it turns into an avalanche real quick. I mean, what are you kind of seeing what are these probes going to turn into, or what's on the forefront of even more innovation?
Well, it blew my mind a couple of years back, sharing a shuttle ride at ACI from the convention to the hotel to come back home. And a couple of guys that all knew each other were in there talking about automation, and could it possibly happen in the ready mix business like it has in other industries. And they were talking about, the value of that technical guy, that QC guy that had a broad base understanding of the business. You take a good operator and a mechanic, have somebody come in and open up a plant 2 o'clock in the morning. You get one guy, the QC guy, to drive the first truck to the job and map the route, GPS wise, if you've got a stable environment for that. And then the next 5 or 6 trucks are just coming on automatic. They got 1 or 2 guys at the plant loading them and making sure nothing goes wrong. And then that QC guy can take over batching from an iPad or a tablet on the job as he sees fit. And somebody can just catch the truck at the entrance to the job, drive it in, because the job site map always changes, right? You need somebody to actually unload and discharge the truck. That still needs to take place. But it could be that one guy on the job. He's checking the loads, making adjustments right there because he's on the job, talking to the customer, seeing what their needs are. It's back then, 8 years ago or so, when I heard that conversation, I was like, man, that's just crazy. That's crazy talk. You can you can't do that. But as it's progressed, especially the last 3 to 5 years, the advancements in the industry and systems and technology and process materials, um, and the shortage of labor, the shortage of the people who actually want to get in this business and do this job, the ones that do and the ones that are getting better at what they do. You're seeing a an elevation in the skill level and the professionalism and just the willingness to get things done, I think, in the industry, and it's in a broader range of people. And I think that group of people, coupled with the right technology, maybe it'll make something like that happen one of these days. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but as fast as things have advanced, you never know. It's a little daunting, to think you've got something like a mixer truck going down the road on automatic, but hey, it's certain the technology is certainly there to make it possible, and things like in-transit monitoring, just more systems along the way to gauge what it is you're selling, what it is you're delivering, make things like that possible. So from a ready mix standpoint, I think more and more automation. I know I've been to plants that are remote batch, that nobody's at the plant when the truck pulls in to load. That's been there for years. Um, the truck piece is the next piece. That's the most labor intensive. That's the most advanced. That's the most complicated. The most unique thing about the ready mix industry is delivering that load in transit. And I think we're on the cusp of seeing that become much more advanced than it's ever been imaginable in the last 20 years.
So we're going to have a Tesla ready mix truck.
Yeah.
Josh can tell you all about it. Got him a new Tesla.
I love those things, man. I love
them.
Yeah. I didn't buy my Tesla because I think I'm saving the planet. I bought it because it's really, really fast. It's one of the coolest cars I've ever driven. And I'm a pushrod V8 Chevy guy. I've been racing stuff ever since I was a kid. And there's a time and a place for everything. But there's so many people on the roads nowadays, and that supercharged Camaro, there just isn't much of a place for that anymore, except for the racetrack, obviously, and I love that too. But yeah, the autonomous vehicles and self-driving stuff, it doesn't bother me. I actually trust technology to be more consistent than humans, and I think that might be a generational thing. And as we see generations being phased out and replaced with people who are more not technologically advanced, but just forward thinking towards that kind of stuff, and they're more willing to adapt to those kind of changes where, something you might not have seen anymore, but the concept checks out. It seems like it should make sense. We'll roll with it. Again, I think that's what's going to further accelerate that snowball into an avalanche, like I mentioned earlier. We got people like Lee out there saying, like, hey, this is possible. We can do it, and we need to do it. There's so many benefits. So who knows? We might see a concrete truck going down the road with nobody in it within the next decade or so. I hope so.
I totally agree with you, and I think it's truly a matter of what's available. I think if there's a shift in the population and the attitudes and the willingness of people to do less technical jobs and more manual jobs, more trade skill jobs for a living, then that pool of talent will increase. And if you have a person that you could put in that mixer truck, that's probably what you're going to default to, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to want to have somebody in there, and that's what everybody would like to see happen. Traveling around the country and talking to ready mix guys and seeing all the different things everybody's doing, and just recently read the NRMCA report on mixer trucks and drivers report, the Commercial Driver Association report, things like that. They've been trying to increase those numbers for decades now, and it just hasn't happened. I think because starting now, kindergartners have got iPads in school, and elementary kids got their own phone and stuff. It's just like everybody wants to gravitate toward working smarter, not harder. I'm not one of those people that thinks it's making everybody lazy. I think it's just a different mindset, and I think if you can tap into that and harness that and think, well, what's possible? What can we do with technology? Then you'll see that shift. And I think that's probably where it's going to go, because I really don't think there's going to be something that can match that just emotionally and educationally to give that same group of people that same satisfaction of going out and driving a mixer truck, and understanding a load of concrete. But they were going to be much more fascinated by that load of concrete because they got a display screen on the back of their cab that tells you what the slump is. They're not going to be scared to have to look at it and judge for themselves the way the rock's falling over the fins. Well, what's that slump, and is my customer going to yell at me? Well, no, the customer's not going to yell at me because I'm delivering a 6. And hey, cool, look how cool that looks coming out of the back of the truck, So if the technology is harnessed the right way, it could be a job and a skill set that young people are going to want.
Right.
Wages are going up, benefits are going up. It's going to become an attractive position, and hopefully one day will be competitive again. It used to be guys wanted to get off a dump truck to go drive a ready-mix truck because you got paid more and it was a cooler thing to do and it was a better thing to do, in that realm of truck drivers. Now there's just so few general truck drivers, you can't distinguish between what's cool and what's not. So I don't think, I'm not one of these people that think that automation is going to take the truck driver's job. We're almost 2 million CDL license short in this country alone. Everybody's buying more off of Amazon, Yeah, we're going to stay away from politics, getting back into, manufacturing things in this country. So we'll cut that out. But, the country's getting bigger. People got to eat. You need that Amazon box on the front door. And you can't ship to Amazon without the Amazon warehouses, and you can't do it without roads and bridges, and you got to have concrete for those things. So, the need for drivers is never going to go away. It'll get answered somehow. Somehow that vehicle will go up and down the road.
Right, and whether it's completely autonomous or you got kids nowadays that might be interested in driving those concrete trucks from a workstation like you would fly a drone. Mm-hmm. You just got a kid in an office somewhere driving multiple ready-mix trucks at a time through software programs. I think in the cities where and I talked with a guy just a couple of years back. It was funny as a follow-up to the whole ACI conversation like 7 years ago. 3-4 years ago, I'm at a lunch and happened to be sitting with some guys at Oak Ridge. And one of their biggest things they were working on was cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, near field communication signals in a heavy dense metro area. And how do you separate those and single those out? And these guys were specifically working on things that dealt with GPS and mapping. And they were already at the point where they're evaluating, okay, is this street lamp that's Wi-Fi enabled a better solution than this underground wire, or better than these standalone signs that we put up every couple of blocks or every block on the corner that couples as the crosswalk sign? So there are already guys that are trying to figure out how to put the infrastructure backbone together to make this possible. So right. It's almost a question of when, not if. And it's just a matter of with a ready-mix truck, is that going to be how? And is it going to be smart? Is it going to be possible? Right. I happen to think in-transit monitoring is a huge step toward answering that question. Well, that's interesting. And that was a great segment. We love talking about that kind of technology, innovation, what we can expect in the future. And everyone we talk to from all different parts of the industry, they all have unique viewpoints and unique thoughts, but it's all kind of pointed in the same direction. But with that, though, we're not going to look forward as much. We're going to look back. What we ask every one of our guests is, what's the craziest thing you've seen on a job site? We've had some really cool stories. And Lee, we appreciate that you listen to the podcast. You listen to the episodes, so you've heard some good ones. You know what you're up against here. Do you have anything to compete?
I do, but knowing that I've got kids in college and high school that will probably listen to this, I might not want to recount some of those because, you can't work downtown Atlanta and downtown Nashville over as many years as I did in the middle of the night for night pours down on 2nd Avenue, down at Little 5 Points and things like that without seeing things that just make you want to shake your head. The level of stupidity of some people in the general public upon inebriation is just fascinating.
And that was so eloquently put.
Yeah,
that's going to be a soundbite.
He's very eloquent. He swerved earlier right into like this nasty pit of political fervor, and he swerved right back out of it, went into his lane, and then brought it right back to concrete. It was incredible. You have politics in your future, sir.
Oh God, I hope not.
Yeah. Well, this was originally Joey Bell's idea to have at some location, and now that the world is starting to travel more, hopefully we can do this at a World Concrete event or something, but have a Add 10 Gallons After Dark episode where we can get together over a beer or two and share some of these stories that shall not be mentioned.
Yeah. The to fit in with some of the ones that have made the top list, I'll give you my firearm story. So we were actually doing a white topping job. I don't know if you're familiar with white topping, the ultra thin concrete overlay pavement. We were doing it in Clarksville, Tennessee, and doing a major intersection there. And we had already had like 2 people in the middle of the night push across, just barrel through the safety. And we didn't have cones. We had like the big round safety barrels with the blinking lights on top. We already had 1 or 2 people just go in between them and hit the fresh concrete and realize they're in it and stop and back up. Our finishers were already mad, having to fix that twice. So here it is. We've been working for about 32 hours straight. We are finishing up. And this is 10:30, 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Some cat daddy, drunk as a skunk, just goes through the barrels and just driving down the lane, man. And even turns left into the hotel. Yeah, he drove down the lane probably, 150, 200 feet down the lane of fresh concrete, and then turns into the hotel where we're all staying, He jumped the curb and went into the hotel and gets out stumbling. Well, we're staying there. So the guys who have to fix that, the finishers that just got through fixing this twice already, saw that. He threw his trowel at him. He was cleaning up his tools and putting them in the truck. Threw the trowel at him. The guy pops off the mouth. He goes to the truck, gets a pistol, and is walking across the parking lot. Luckily, the cops that were there doing traffic control saw all this and were already headed that way. And then they took off running, to get in between the guys. But I swear, man, if those cops hadn't been there, that would have been a whole lot different ending and been something pretty bad, I would think, because concrete finishing is an art. Those guys work for a living. I did that in rod busting long enough to know I got to go to school. That is work, man, and to have your work ruined like that by some drunk, man, he was pissed. That was one of the craziest things I saw, for sure.
There you go. That was a good one. We appreciate that.
I got one other one though, because it takes, if there was stupid awards for sales reps, this guy would have gotten one.
Okay.
It's Franklin, Tennessee. It's a pump job. It's like 150 yards elevated deck pour. Okay. It's on I honestly don't remember if it was the second or third floor. I think it was the second floor, but it might have been the third because it was a long way up there. But this sales rep comes up to and it was a pretty good, well-known contractor in the metro area at the time, and these guys wanted to demo a riding trowel. It was a double blade, 2-blade riding trowel, and he pulls it up on a trailer, all brand new, and I'm thinking, I've never seen anybody trowel an elevated metal deck before. What in the heck is this guy doing? You never need a hard trowel finish on an elevated metal deck that I can remember. So they have the, safety cables along the deck with the ribbons to keep everybody safe, right? Well, they had one corner open, and that's where the pump boom had gone in. So I'm down there by the pump working. We get finished with the pour, and the guy's cleaning out the pump. We had a truck stay so he could recycle through the pump to the drum of the truck for cleanup. So they fly this riding trowel up through that gap in the wire and get this guy on it to start demoing it on this elevated metal deck. And we hear that thing up there just, whining, going crazy. And I'm standing there by the pump talking to the pump operator, and the pump operator saying, what kind of crazy fool wants to hard trial an elevated metal deck? And about that time we hear this zing, 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 zing. We look up, and the guy driving that thing had hit a lever, kicked it into high gear, he didn't know what he was doing. He just took a straight right-hand turn, came off that deck because the cables were gone, and came slammed down within like 15 feet of me and the pump guy at the back of the pump. Wham! Broke his ankle, cracked a couple
stayed
of
on it
ribs.
the whole time?
Yeah, he hooked his... we heard that wing, the blade spinning coming across. The look on that guy's face would have been a priceless meme. It would have been just absolutely one of the best construction memes ever. Beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. Why are you on a riding trial with no concrete underneath you, right? So he just hooks his arms underneath the thing, and luckily he'd buckled into it, and it hits not quite flat, but almost. So it just came off and dropped like a rock, something off the Jetsons, man. He slammed that thing down. I mean, it was fresh from the factory, gone.
So what all did he break?
Broke his ankle, cracked a couple of ribs, had a concussion because he snapped his head against something on the side. It was crazy. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I guarantee that guy's not demoing any riding trials on the elevated mail deck no more.
I guess.
Dummy.
Oh my gosh.
That's a good one. That's one of the best ones. That's nominated for the best craziest thing I've ever seen award.
Yeah, I mean, and it's application specific. It's not like the guy got loose from the hospital next door. Like this was legit. The dude rode the power trowel off the fucking roof. I mean, like I'm practically speechless over here. Like when you were telling that story, I'm thinking, no, he just got close to the edge. Maybe since it's a double blade, maybe like one of the blades like went swinging off and he caught himself or something. Oh my god!
Oh boy, went full send offer.
Full send.
And if you've ever been out on a big slab, big warehouse slab when we're moving from one area to the other, I mean when they crank, I mean they can go, man. They can move. And when you're talking about, maybe just a 30-foot wide section of this deck, he's off on the far side. And he gets, I don't know. I don't know if it was the controllers on that one were different what he's used to, or if that was his first day on one. I have no idea. He lived to tell about it, but he didn't walk away. Bless his heart. But yeah.
Well, dang. That's a heck of a way to end the episode, Lee. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. Well, we hope to see you around in person, wherever that may be. We'll keep in touch with you, but we certainly appreciate your time here on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Tell Joey I hope everything's going well, and he ever wants to do it after dark, we'll meet up somewhere for sure.
Yeah, we're for that idea. All right, man.
Yeah.
Thanks,
and if you guys by chance are thinking about coming to ASTM or ACI, both of them are in Atlanta this fall. We could use the support for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something we've talked about, and we'll catch up with you on that as well.
Yep, next month, right? October.
Yep. And ASTM's in December for sure. But I'm on the local ACI committee, so yeah, we're looking for that one to be a good one. We hope it will be the first in-person one in a long time. So.
All right, looking forward to it. All right, Lee, take care, man. Thanks a lot.
Yep, thanks.
Yep.
See you.
All right, and that's going to do it for us here for episode 22 of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete podcast. Thanks a lot to Lee for the great stories, insight, and background from his time at the CIM program and the education that he got there as an OG in the program to where he is now with Command Alkon and all the great technology that they're bringing to the job site. And what we can expect moving forward. But in the meantime, go ahead and hit us up on social media. As mentioned in the podcast, we have Facebook, Instagram, and a YouTube page to keep you entertained between episodes. Hit us up and look us up by searching Add 10 Gallons. Also, tell a friend about the podcast, rate and review us, download the episodes, and we'll continue to grow this thing and keep coming at you with great guests just like Lee for the foreseeable future. But between now and then, y'all be good, and we'll see you on the next one.